Welcome back to the Multi-Passionate Mama podcast. Every week I want to bring you a little mini episode where I share something that's been on my mind, something that's really present for me. I love having guests, but sometimes I find that I have these quirky, fascinating ideas that I want to share. Let's dive in. I wanted to take a minute and talk about building a business as a craftsman, but specifically as somebody who sews, has a sewing business, or makes, jewelry and things like that, just because I had a question come up in that the same baking thread post that I had talked about the other day. And she asked about, she created a Miss Piggy doll that she had sewn, and it was so cute. And she talked about how all the materials cost so much because right now fabric and thread and buttons are so expensive. And when she charged for it and she did the equation that I had laid out, she ended up making like $3 an hour because it took it took time to make it, right? Sewing is not always easy and things go wrong. And so I wanted to do a little mini episode about why I am not currently sewing things in a business anymore, why I got out of that business, and how you could potentially make that successful. Because I think that this is a topic that could help people who are wanting to be in that business. So I had a business making button jewelry. I've also had several different businesses where I would sew things. I used to custom make tote bags and weighted blankets and weighted snakes for therapy purposes for autistic children. I also, I did them for schools and also for custom made ones, but I also did wedding dress alterations. I probably had other sewing businesses. I'm trying to remember. I've had so many different ones. And what I found with sewing is, in particular, that makes it a different business than cake baking, is that with sewing is that there's so many people in other countries that are doing the whole slave labor for really cheap in foreign countries, that it's really hard to get paid what you're worth for sewing specifically in the US. That doesn't mean that it's impossible. That doesn't mean that you can't make it work. And I see people do it all the time. But as somebody who did this specifically in Utah, what I found a lot of the times was that people would walk around craft shows and they would look at my products that were extremely complicated and difficult to make, and they'd be like, Psh, I can make that, and then they'd walk away. And I actually did very well in my business, but that was a very frequent response that I got to my products. And so it's something I would just consider as you are sewing these dolls, and they are so beautiful, and this is such a gift. It's such a gift to be able to make for people, something that is handmade and heartfelt. But sewing is a gift that is becoming less and less appreciated over time. And particularly, like I said, because of the ability for people to get it done faster and cheaper in foreign countries. You can just put together a design and have it created for pennies on the dollar in other countries. And so if you really want to continue making this, which first of all, really consider that, because what I found was that I didn't want to be a manufacturer. After several years of running my businesses, I realized that I was spending all of my time making the same thing over and over and over and over again, and I didn't find a lot of joy in that. What I found joy in was creating new things. I liked designing new products and the creativity involved in making something new and different. So I didn't like just churning out the same exact product over and over and over again. I liked the designing process. So I went and I studied costume and fashion design in college. So I liked designing clothes, but I didn't like the creation of the exact same tote bag over and over and over and over and over again. So consider what exactly it is that you like about your business. What part is your favorite? Because if it's not the manufacturing, there are other ways around it. Like you could go send your patterns, like you could make your product into a pattern and you can send that pattern out to other countries and have it manufactured, or you could just sell the pattern. That is actually a fabulous idea. Patterns sell for, you could sell your patterns online, and you could do it that way. There's also ways to make it uniquely yours. You could make custom items with like people's, one particular idea that's coming to mind is people who have family members who have recently died like to take those clothing items and turn them into stuffed animals or a quilt, or even just like a t-shirt quilt from somebody who just graduated high school and they've got all their band and choir and drama t-shirts, right? And you turn it into a quilt or a stuffed animal or something. I've done that before. Like you can do custom items and custom always comes out to being more expensive and more unique and more individualized. And so that is a great way to make your business kind of one of a kind, because people are willing to pay to have that done. And working with knits in that kind of capacity is something that a lot of people do not know how to do, even if they have basic sewing skills. So if you have the ability to do that, then it's something that you can offer. You could also take like wedding dresses and make them into something that is beautiful after the wedding, or baby clothes or things like that. There's all sorts of different unique sewing ideas that are custom. That is an opportunity for you to use your sewing skills in a unique way. So if you can find something that is unique, find a niche that is an opportunity for you to really not scale down, but really find a pigeonhole that you can decide is yours, then yeah, you can have a fantastic sewing business that people will come to you for that particular thing. But as far as like manufacturing something that is reproducible by other people in other countries, that is a really hard one to get around. And the truth is that people often don't want to pay, what it costs you with your valuable time to make like a stuffed animal for that, like at a farmer's market, when they can just buy a $5 stuffed animal at Walmart or something, Another thing you could do besides like selling patterns is you could teach sewing. Teaching children how to sew, first of all, is a fabulous skill, but it also takes a lot of patience. I know this because I'm trying to teach my son how to sew, and holy guacamole, it takes so much patience. But the pride that that anybody has when they are able to sew their own stuffed animal or their own tote bag or whatever it is, like, it's amazing when you're able to do that for yourself, even if it's not something that you're trying to make a business with. So being a teacher of that is another great way that you could use your skill to make a living. So those are my considerations when it comes to having a sewing business, or even like a button jewelry kind of business, because jewelry making kind of feels like it falls in some of the same categories. Like jewelry is often also created in other countries for very, very cheaply. You can teach your skills. You can sell the patterns for your unique designs. You could be designing people's wardrobes. Like you could branch out into related fields that inspire you. But think about what you really want and what you really, really love, because that is such an important consideration. And I think that we often forget that part, because like for me, I dove right in to my businesses without understanding fully what I liked. And I think a lot of us do that, and it's okay for us to have trial and error. Like that's part of life. And the more that you know about yourself, the more that you're able to build a life that you really love. Just don't be afraid to pivot, right? So once you realize like, oh, hey, I don't want to sit here for 10 hours a day just sewing the same tote bag over and over and over again. Like I like sewing, but I don't like it that much. Like, I'm missing the creative stimulation that really brought me to this in the first place. Once you start to understand yourself better and what you really like, don't be afraid to pivot. All the best people pivot. Apple pivoted until they found the right thing, right? They had all sorts of different crazy ideas until they finally found the iPhone, okay? Don't be afraid to change your mind. Don't be afraid to try new ideas until you really find the thing that you love. And pay attention as you're running your business and trying things out and testing things. Which part of it do you actually love? Because usually the parts you don't love, somebody else will love to do those things, and you can hire out the parts you don't love. And maybe you can't hire out immediately, but you can build up a business where you eventually are able to hire out the parts you don't like, and you're able to just focus on your unique skill set, on your gifts and talents, on your superpowers, because you do have them. And that's what you're here to do in this world, but you have to first, hone in on what that is. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Multi-Passionate Mama podcast. I know that we can never be told too many times how amazing we are, so in case you haven't been told today, you are a freaking rock star. When you let yourself shine, you allow other people to take off their filters and shine brightly too. It's about time someone gave you permission to be all of you. If you enjoyed this show, please leave me a review and hit that subscribe button. I know you want more of this. Sharing is caring. Let someone you love know how incredible they are by texting them the link to this episode. They'll feel so good just knowing that you thought about them. And lastly, if you want to know more about my courses and coaching, be sure to check out my website for up-to-date details on everything I have available. It's KaraleigHgarrison.com, and the link is in the show notes. Always remember that you are a diamond. Don't let anyone dim your sparkle.